your book, Israel and Civilization, it's certainly being launched at a critical time. How are you feeling about it?
Gabriella, I'm really excited. This is my first book. I poured my whole heart and soul into it, and I think it came out really well, if I don't say so myself. I'm really pleased with it here. It's talking about in this book the state of Israel is in there, and U.S.-Israel relations. I make a very hard-headed, realist, MAGA, America First style case for the importance of U.S.-Israel relations, which basically boils down to the following. I basically say that America's #1 geopolitical threat this century is China. If you want to free up resources to focus on China, you should hand off the baton to regional allies who share your interests in a given part of the world. That's Israel and the Middle East there. But really kind of this broader point that I was just talking about kind of is a leitmotif that weaves its way all throughout this book. The book essentially, Gabrielle, is basically calling for Jews and Christians alike to fall in love with the Bible again, because I argue that there are three forces ultimately that are seeking to subjugate and overturn all that today we call quote unquote Western civilization. Those forces are wokeism, Islamism, and global neoliberalism. The lattermost being Davos, Brussels, United Nations, all these transnational global institutions. They're all waging a war on Western civilization one way or the other. The question is, are we going to gird ourselves? Are we going to ground ourselves in the actual values that our entire civilization was founded upon in order to launch a counteroffensive against these three forces? To me, that's going to require some sort of biblical reawakening there. So I really kind of walk through the English common law, the American founding there. I really show how all of this is predicated upon the biblical principles and, frankly, the political philosophy of the Hebrew scriptures above all. So it's all in there. Again, the book is called Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation, The Destiny of the West, available this Tuesday.
Congratulations, Josh. I'm very much looking forward to reading it as such an important topic, as coming at such an important time. I have two more US issues I have to get to before I let you go. I want to talk about President Trump's approval rating. It's actually dropped. I suppose this was inevitable. He was on such a high for months, and now we are starting to see this shift. So Trump's overall job approval rating currently stands at 45%, so it hasn't dropped significantly. But we have also seen, I suppose, this week, US stocks plunge. Wall Street had its worst day of the year on Monday, with the S&P 500 index falling 2.7%, and Bitcoin has also stumbled. What do you make of all of this? I suppose is the market, I should say, reacting to uncertainty? Is Trump doing too much too fast? Was this inevitable, and we're just kind of seeing a period of adjustment?
Yeah, I think all of the above. I mean, everything you said seems correct to me. So Donald Trump was starting in a very high place. His approval rating right out of the gate there in the first month or so was higher than it literally had ever been in his entire first term. So he was already starting on a higher level. And, some sort of correction to the mean was probably bound to happen. Unfortunately, Americans are not a particularly optimistic lot these days when it comes to our country. So we tend to have a more negative than positive view of our elected officials as a general rule. The fact that Donald Trump was actually above water for as long as he was says more about the popularity of his policies and how desperate the American people were to change from the failed policies of the Biden-Harris administration. So it was bound to be some sort of correction to the mean there. Now, the stock market obviously has been in pretty rough shape here for the past few days or so. Maybe that's reaction to some of the tariffs and the trade war. Maybe it's due to other factors there. Is Donald Trump overplaying his hand when it comes to tariffs? Maybe. I mean, look. I mean, if I were advising him, I would say, let's cool down a little bit when it comes to a country like Canada. I mean, I'm not entirely sure that I see necessarily the overwhelming American national interest in antagonizing our friendly northerly neighbors, especially at a time, frankly, where the Tories, the Conservative Party in Canada, was looking like they were going to win an election this summer. So I'm not entirely sure exactly what's going on there. But these things ultimately, Gabriella, have a way of sorting themselves out. I will say that in general, I am more sympathetic to tariffs than most of the mainstream commentators here in the United States. Look, are they economically efficient as a general rule? No, but they have other useful functions. I mean, Gabrielle, I've spent a lot of time in the Midwest of the United States. I have spent many nights in old Rust Belt towns that have literally been destroyed due to globalism, due to manufacturing supply chains literally shipped out and lost to China. It is important that a country like America not merely seek to minimize prices when it comes to global free trade neoliberalism. It actually is important that we actually make some concrete goods there, that we actually be self-reliant when it comes to everything from pharmaceuticals to semiconductors and the chips that go into our computer and iPhone. So the idea of tariffs, I'm actually deeply sympathetic to. I wholeheartedly support them when it comes to countries like China. I would probably encourage him to use more of a scalpel rather than a cudgel when it comes to a country like Canada. But reasonable minds may vary on this. But overall, I'm pretty bullish still about the direction of the economy, and this is a short-term dip that I think will have a tendency to self-correct.